Hello guys, how are you? Welcome to this class, Circular Flow of Income. And before I start my class, I would like to know how you all are at home, because we all are passing through very hard times nowadays due to the outbreak of this coronavirus COVID-19, which has really disturbed the normal functioning of life of different people, and we are also victims of this. Uh, Anyways, I will wish and I will advise all of you to stay home, stay safe, help your parents, help your uh, neighbors, near and dears in the fight against COVID 19. And at the same time, we must not forget that our study is also hampered, isn't it? We are not able to carry on our studies in the schools. Schools have been suspended. Okay, so we have to find out some ways and some means to carry on our studies. So this is the minimum thing that we can do for you. We'll try to make such videos of different chapters and to share it with you so that we can carry on our studies at home without much difficulty. And again, stay home, stay safe, enjoy online classes of economics. Okay, now we are going to start with our first unit of macroeconomics as per your syllabus, that is national income and its related aggregates. And circular flow of income, as you can see on the screen, this is related to national income aggregates. Okay, so first you have to understand what is circular flow of income or circular flow of money in an economy. What are its different phases? Okay, and after understanding this, gradually we will proceed to its more important concepts, that is national income, its components, different methods of measurement of national income, what are the precautions we have to take while calculating national income, all these things which we are going to learn in our later classes. But first of all, we have to understand what is circular flow of income. So let's begin the class. What we are going to learn in this video today: first we will learn what is an economic activity. Second, we will see or we will understand what is production. Third, what are the basic factors of production. Fourth, what are the rewards these factors of production get. Okay, so basically focus will be on these four concepts which are related to circular flow of income. Before we know what is how income flows in an economy, we must understand how it comes, how it is generated, what is the source of income, all these things. These are some connected things which once you understand this, then this chapter will be very much interesting for you as well as easy for you. Okay, let's see again. So what is an economic activity? As we have already studied in our previous classes, economic activities are those activities in which there is transaction of money. As you can see in the second line, I have written it, transaction of money. If there is transaction of money in any legal and productive activity, any kind of action, any kind of work which is legal and productive, it is taking place by some people, and there is transaction of money between two people, that economic activity is called that activity is called economic activity, right? So it can be making means manufacturing, means making of a commodity. It can be distributing of goods and services between places. It can be selling of goods and services, purchasing of goods and services, transportation, communication, all these activities where money is transacted or money is paid and received, all these are called economic activities. Okay, second, what is production? Remember one thing, Production is the most important economic activity in an economy. In other words, we can say that it is the center of all economic activities. Okay, all other economic activities like distribution, consumption, sale, purchase, everything, all these activities, they revolve around the center of all productive activities, that are economic activities, that is called production. So if there is no production, there is no other economic activities. There is no production means there is no economy. Okay, so production is the most important economic activity, just remember that. So what is the meaning of production? The process of transforming raw materials into more useful finished goods is called production. It has also been covered in class 9 syllabus. When we use some raw material and we try to manufacture or produce some more useful finished good by using the raw material, by processing it, that process is called production. Let me give you an example. Suppose a carpenter is taking a piece of wood and he is making a fine chair, beautiful chair out of it. That means he did something with the wood. He processed the wood to make a chair. So that processing work, whatever he does, cutting, shaping, designing, okay, and assembling all the parts of the chair, everything, all these processing works, that is called production. And what we get after the production process, we get a very beautiful chair, which is definitely more useful than a piece of wood. Okay, so production basically means transformation of raw materials or inputs into more finished goods or output. Third, what are the basic factors of production? Remember, in an economy, to produce anything, we need some factors of production. And the basic 4 factors of production are these. First is called land, which includes both land and water. Both land means hard surface of the earth as well as the water bodies in an economy. Both are included under land. Okay. Then labor. Third, labor means workers, people, those who give their efforts, those who give their time, they use their skills to produce goods and services, they come under this labor category. Third one is capital, which can be fixed as well as working. Fixed capital, which cannot be changed during the process of production. For example, you are having a building, you are having a particular machinery or a machine, and you are producing some goods by using that machine and building. Okay, so that is fixed, we cannot change it over time. But working capitals are those capitals which can be changed. If you want to produce more goods, you may need more raw materials, you can invest more money. That is called working capital, because it keeps on changing with change in production. Okay. Fourth one is entrepreneur. So who is an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur is the person who takes the initiative. He develops the idea of producing something, and after that he collects the different resources to produce that commodity. Okay, he arranges all the factors from different corners of the world or different parts. He puts all the factors like labor, land, capital, money, raw material, all these things. He collects all these things from different sides. Wherever it is available at cheaper rate and at economic rate, he collects these factors of production, brings them together to one platform, and tries to use them to produce some goods and services. So he is called the entrepreneur who takes the initiative to start a business or an enterprise. Okay, so these are the 4 factors of production in an economy. Remember, land, labor, capital, and fourth one is entrepreneur. Okay, basic factors, because without these 4, no economic production, no production is possible. Okay, so these are the basic factors of production. Now, fourth one is, what are the rewards of these factors of production? Now, when we are using land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur, obviously we have to pay them their rewards, because they are giving their services to us to produce a good, to produce a service, or to produce some commodities. When we are using land, we have to pay we have to pay land its reward. When we are using labor, we have to pay labor its reward. So what are these rewards called? They are having different rewards, and they are known by different terms. For example, for hiring land or using land, the reward we pay to land is called rent. The reward we pay to labor for its service is called wage or salary. The reward of capital is called interest, and the reward of the entrepreneur to start the initiative or start a business, to take the risk of a business, is called profit. So these four are the respective rewards of these four factors of production. Okay, you can see here these rewards to various factors of production are called their respective incomes. We can call them factor incomes also. Remember this term, factor income, which will be useful for you in calculation of national income. Okay, factor income. Rent, wage and salary, interest and profit. These are called factor incomes of the different factors of production. Okay. What is factor income? I have already mentioned to you. The payment received by the factors of production for their productive services is called factor income. Wage, salary, rent, interest, profit, etc. are factor income. So there should not be any doubt in here now. Yes. Usually factor incomes are received in money terms. You might have heard people saying his income is 50,000 rupees, my income is 20,000 rupees. Like this, we generally calculate income in terms of money. Okay, that's why often we call it money income also. So we commonly call it money income. Whatever income is received by these factors of production, it is also commonly called money income. Why it is called money income? Because generally we receive our income in terms of money. Okay, good. Now we will proceed to our center of this particular class, that is circular flow of income. What is it? See, it refers to the cycle of generation, distribution and disposition of income in an economy. You must understand it very clearly. What are these terms? Generation, distribution and disposition of an economy. Income in an economy. So in a simplified way, we can define it as the continuous flow of money among the various sectors of an economy. Okay. So first let me tell you, an economy is divided into some sectors. Okay. First, household is a sector. Second, farm is a sector. Third, the government is a sector. And the fourth, the foreign countries with which we have trade and business relationships. That is called the foreign sector or the external sector. So in this way there are different sectors. But in our syllabus we have to be confined to only the first two, that is household and firm, which is called two sector economy, right? Now let me explain this the meanings of these terms: generation, distribution and disposition of income. Now what is income? Remember, income, as we have already discussed in our previous slide, income is the reward to a factor of production for its contribution in the process of production. If I am doing something in the production of any good or services, then I will be paid my reward. That is called my income. In other words, we can say that if I am producing something, I will be getting income. Or we can also say that when some production takes place, some income is generated. I hope it is clear. When there is production activity, there is generation of income hand in hand. Means production and generation of income go hand in hand. Simultaneously both these activities take place. Okay. So whatever is produced, equal amount of income is also generated. So production and generation of income, both are just two sides of the same coin, you can say. Second, distribution of income. When income is generated, we are producing some goods and services, we are using factors of production to produce the goods and services, and income is generated. Now what is to be done with that income? That income generated is to be distributed among the factors of production. Okay, suppose we are using land, we are using labor, we are using capital. Three factors. Let me tell you that we are taking, suppose these three factors to produce a commodity. Okay, now we are paying suppose 100 rupees to the land, 200 rupees to labor, and again 200 rupees to capital. So in this way 100 plus 200 plus 200, we are paying 500 rupees as income to these factors of production. So this is called the distribution of the income. Okay, 100 plus 200 plus 200 to capital, this is called distribution of the income among the factors of production. So after generation of income, the second phase is called distribution of income phase. Now what these people will do with that income? Obviously they will try to spend this income to buy or to purchase goods and services that they need, that will fulfill their own wants. Like I receive my income after giving my service, then I spend that income to purchase all those goods and requirements that I need, isn't it? So similarly, each and every person, after getting his income, he spends the income to buy goods and services which are available in the market. This is called disposition stage. Okay, so it will be clear with this picture. Generation means production of goods and services. Fix it in your mind very clearly that whenever production takes place, there is generation of income also. Okay, without production there is no question of any income generation. So after generation of income, what is done with the income? The income is distributed among the various factors of production. This is called, you can see this, payment of income to the factors. This is called the distribution stage. Okay, disposition means these factors of production, after receiving their income, they spend it. That is expenditure of the money received by the factors to buy goods and services. That means whatever goods and services they need, they require, they buy it from the market by spending their income. I hope it is clear to you, all of you. Right, let us now proceed. So this is the explanation of circular flow of income between the household and the firm. As I have already mentioned, we will focus only on two sector model, that is household and the firm. Okay, this is also called a closed economy or a simple economy model, where there are two sectors only, the household and the firm sector. Okay, now what is the relationship between the household and the firm? Who are covered under household? Who are covered under the firm? Household represents the consumer sector of the economy. All those people who are consumers of goods and services to satisfy their own wants, they belong to the household sector. Means they purchase goods and services, they consume goods and services to satisfy their own wants, not to produce anything. Okay, suppose I am purchasing a packet of milk and I am using at home to prepare tea or to consume it myself, then I belong to the household sector. I am not producing anything by using that milk. Okay, so all those people who are consumers, they belong to the household sector. Now on the other hand, what is firm? Firm represents the production units of an economy. All those institutions, all those units which are engaged in production of different goods and services in an economy, they belong to the firm sector. So the firm represents the production sector, the firm represents the production sector of the economy, whereas the household represents the consumer sector of the economy or consumption sector of the economy, right? Now let us see what is the relationship between the household and the firm. Okay, you can see two arrow marks, two black arrow marks, one going from the household towards the firm, the second one going from the firm towards the household. And what does this first arrow mark represent? that is going from household to the firm, it represents the supply of factors of production from the household to the firm. You can see over here it is written clearly, factors of production. That means household is the owner of all factors of production. Household is the owner of all factors of production. Okay, land, labor, capital, these are all owned by the household. They all belong to the household, and whenever any firm requires these factors of production, it has to purchase it from the household, or it has to take these factors of production on higher basis. So household supplies the factors of production to the firm, remember. Now what is that we get from the firm? The firm produces goods and services by using the factors of production, and those goods and services are supplied by the firm to the household, as you can see over here. The things that we use in our day-to-day life. Let us take the example of a refrigerator, a television, a mobile phone, shoes, clothes, everything. All those things that we use in our day-to-day life, from where do we get them? They are produced by the firm, and they are supplied to us by the firm, and we have to purchase it from the firm. So in this way, so there is a continuous flow between the household and the firm. What is this flow? Flow of goods and services from the firm to the household, and flow of factors of production from the household to the firm. I hope you understand my concept. What I want to explain you, the flow between household and the firm. I hope you understand it very clearly. Okay, there is one more flow that takes place between household and the firm. What is that? This is when household supplies factors of production to the firm, the firm has to pay factor payments. That means if household is supplying land, the firm has to pay rent. If the household is supplying labor, the firm has to pay wage. So like this, the firm has to pay factor payments to the household, as you can see here, right? On the other hand, when firm is supplying goods and services, the household has to pay money for that. It has to spend money on purchasing goods and services, which is called consumption expenditure incurred by the household. So what is the expenditure made by the firm? That is factor payments for hiring factors of production from the household. And what is the expenditure made by the household sector? It is consumption expenditure, and it is made for purchasing goods and services from the firm. So in this way, we can see there are two types of flows. One flow which is taking place between the household and the firm, that is flow of goods and services, that is called factors of production and goods and services. So there is no transaction. These two flows represent the real goods and services. Land is a real commodity, labor is a real commodity, real person. Okay, and goods and services which are supplied by the firm, they are also real physical goods, okay, which are useful in our life. So there is a real flow that exists between the household and the firm, which is represented by this black arrows. Okay. On the other hand, there is also one more flow which takes place in the form of money. Factor payments made by the firm to the household is in terms of money. Then household spends money to buy goods and services from the firm, which is called consumption expenditure, that is also in monetary term. So these two red arrow marks that you can see on the screen, they represent the money flow between the household and the firm. Clear? See, black arrows real flow or physical flow, and red arrows nominal or money flow, okay, between the household and the firm. So there are how many types of flows are there? Two types of flows. What are these? One is real flow, that is the flow of goods and services between firm and the household, and there is another flow that is called the money flow, the flow of factor payments and consumption expenditure between the household and the firm, right? Next, this is also a very important concept from your examination point of view, because we often see very short answer type or short answer type questions coming in the examination, annual examination of class 12 in the economics paper related to stock and flow. Okay, so you have to define what is called stock and what is called flow. Let me first discuss what is stock. Any economic variable that is measured at a point of time. I have underlined this word point. Remember, it is very important to mention this term point of time while defining stock. Any economic variable that is measured at a point of time, that we can calculate at a particular point of time, is called stock. Now it is static in nature. Stock is something statutory, it is static, it is fixed, it does not change. Right? Examples: wealth of a nation. How can we calculate the wealth of a nation? We can calculate the wealth of nation only when we get the idea what is the wealth available in the nation, okay, at a particular point of time, okay, in the different forms. That means wealth can be calculated only at a particular point of time. Total deposits in a bank on a debt. People come to bank, they deposit their money throughout the day, and at the end of the day, when we calculate what the total deposits made in the bank on that particular day, that is also called a stock concept, because we calculate the total deposits at that particular point of time. Okay, then money supply in an economy, then stock of goods in a godown as on a debt. All these are examples of stock concept which are measured at a point of time. Flow, the very word is self-explanatory. Flow, as you can understand, it is something dynamic in nature, continuous in nature, it is not static, and we cannot calculate a concept or a variable which is dynamic at a particular point of time. Something which is regular, something which is continuous, which is keep on changing, we can't calculate it at a particular point of time. To calculate that, we need a period of time. Okay, we need a span of time. It may be a week, it may be a month, it may be a year, or whatever. Okay, so flow is a concept, flow is an economic variable that is measured over a period of time. This is dynamic, means very much changing in nature. Examples are national income of a nation, capital formation, production of goods by a firm during a week. See the difference between stock of goods in a godown as on a debt. Okay, on a particular date, what is the stock of a good available in a godown, that is called stock concept. But production of goods by a firm during a week, in the last week how many goods were produced by a particular firm, is a flow concept, because production is a continuous process, it keeps on changing with passage of time. Right? So this is basically the difference between stock and flow. And we are coming to the last section of this video: water injections and water leakages. Briefly I will touch these two concepts. Remember, injections are those additions of income or money into the circular flow of an economy. Any addition to the volume of money in the circular flow of income is called injection. Suppose in an economy, let me explain it with an example. In an economy, we are producing goods and services worth 500 rupees. That means we produced goods and services whose value is 500 rupees. In other words, I can say that we paid 500 rupees to the factors of production as their income to produce those goods and services. Now, tell me, what is the income generated through this production? It is 500. And what is the value of goods and services available in the economy? It is also 500. Right? That means people have 500 rupees with them as their income, and real goods and services which are available in the economy is also worth 500. That means if we can spend 500 rupees, we can purchase the goods and services available in the economy. Correct? But suppose we see that goods, the value of goods and services available is 500 rupees. same as it was produced, but the income with the people is, suppose it is 520. Now it makes a question in your mind, where from this 20 rupees come, right? Because we produced goods and services worth 500 rupees, 500 rupees income was generated, but now we see that 20 rupees extra is available with the people. Okay, the question is, where and how it come, where and how it comes to the economy. So there are different ways in which additional income comes to the economy, comes to the circular flow. So those means and ways through which extra income is added to an economy are called the injections. Okay. Now, what are the different sources of injections? They are investment by the government, investment by the MNCs, foreign countries in an economy. They also lead to increase in the flow of money in the circular flow. Okay, then public expenditure, exports, all these are the examples of injections. What are leakages then? Leakages are those withdrawals of money from the circular flow that reduces the flow of money. Okay, in our example, we stated that we produced goods of 500 rupees, income generated was 500 rupees. Now suppose we see that 450 rupees is with the people to buy goods and services in the flow. People means we paid 500 rupees factor income, but now people are spending 450 rupees to buy goods and services. Now that means there is a deficit of or difference of 50 rupees, isn't it? So again there is a question, what happened to these 50 rupees, right or not? So when we see that our income is something, suppose it is X and our expenditure is Y, then there is a difference. So in this example, if 50 rupees is less, or 50 rupees less is spent by the people in the economy, that means the 50 rupees has been withdrawn from the circular flow. Okay, and what are the possibilities? Either people have saved it, out of their 500 rupees income they have saved 50 rupees, that's why it is not coming to the flow. Second, there is a possibility of taxes. People pay taxes. When we pay taxes to the government, we are not able to spend that money in the market to buy goods and services. So saving of a part of your income, payment of taxes to the government from your income, imports of goods and services from foreign countries, all these are called leakages from the circular flow. Now, what can be the effects of injections and leakages? As we mentioned, injections increase the income of the people, and when people's income increases, demand for goods and services will rise, and when demand for goods and services rise in the economy, then what is supplied in the economy, obviously it will lead to price rise, or what is called inflation. So directly we can say that injections into the circular flow can be inflation in nature, it can cause inflation. On the other hand, leakages, they reduce the flow of money in the economy, they reduce the purchasing capacity of the people, and when there is less money spent by the people, supply of goods and services exceeds the demand for goods and services in the economy. That means demand will be less than supply. More goods will be produced, but demand will be less. In this case, producers will be bound to reduce the prices. Okay, so there is a price fall, or which is called deflation in the economy. So remember, injections cause inflation or price rise, and leakages can lead to falling prices or called deflation. So that's all for today's class. Keep on practicing. Okay, And you can also refer to your books, you can refer to other slides available in the YouTube to understand these two concepts, and we will be providing you more inputs like this related to macroeconomics and Indian economy in the coming time. Thank you. Have a nice day.